you can join me today. Appreciate you being here. Last night we did we watched the UFC Tyson fight, or the UFC fight, I should say, the Mike Tyson fight with Jake Paul. That was an absolute, that was not good. But I had almost 400 people in the stream. So tonight, make sure to jump over, and tonight we're going to be doing UFC 309 for supporters over in betterbachelor.locals.com. With the return of John Jones. And so I think this is going to be way more exciting than the fight last night. That was not good. I'm going to be talking about the fight last night. The only winners of the fight, or I should say the only losers of the fight, were the people that watched it. It was not good. But we had fun. We had fun on the stream, per usual. We always usually do. So, look, I talk a lot about women bad and the divorce and the child custody and taking kids away from families and cheating and, all the usual things that women do that are bad. But that's not the worst thing that women are doing. Right now, a viral clip or a video clip is going viral on the internet because a woman gave a TED Talk. Now, if you don't know what TED Talks are, they're kind of where somebody that's an expert on a topic stands in front of a room and gives a presentation on why they think XYZ should be, I don't know, implemented, or why this is a good thing or why it's a bad thing, whatever. And she gives a TED Talk that goes viral because she's promoting that PDF files, I'm going to put this on YouTube, so I have to watch my words, that PDF files are just people too, and they need to be respected and understood, and you shouldn't talk down about them. They're just as valid and reasonable as any of you straight people out there. And we're getting to the point now where they're trying to normalize this degeneracy. And so I want to talk about normalization. I'm going to talk about some of these teachers. I'm going to talk about it's in the government. It's in our Congress. I've got a statement from Tim Burchett, who's my representative for Congress here in Tennessee. He's saying that, members are getting caught up in stuff, and that's why they vote against Americans' best interest, because it's in the government, it's in our media, it's in Hollywood, it's in our education system, and they're trying to normalize all this stuff. And the only ones, it seems, that really care about, and the media is supporting them, they're not talking bad about it, because the media is mostly women and education's mostly women. The only ones that seem to be pushing back on any of this stuff are conservatives, first of all, including the women, and mostly men, because men are saying, hey, it's the women that are putting this stuff forward. It's not just us guys anymore. First, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, which is PDS Debt. No one wants to think about debt, but the cold, hard truth of it is many of us will get in deeper and deeper in debt during the holidays or with just everyday struggles. But it's never too early to start planning to get help to dig yourself out, and the group at PDS Debt can help with a personalized solution just for you. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down, PDS has solutions for you. Everyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit is accepted. Save more while paying off your debt in a fraction of the time. I've explained before, I used to work in a similar industry. I used to do refis, and I used to help people that were struggling with debt, and there's multiple ways you can help people get out of debt. This is one of them. I would suggest that if you are having some struggles, to reach out, because one of the things that'll keep you from sleeping well at night is worrying about every bill that hits your mailbox. That's one of the reasons why I love that job, because I was able to help people. They say PDS Debt has customized options for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. They strive to understand your specific scenario, can help provide alternative solutions to becoming debt-free. Start planning today. Get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/bachelor15. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/bachelor15, pdsdebt.com/bachelor15. So I'm going to talk about all this stuff because I've had it up to here. When Peanut and Fred, the squirrel that was euthanized up in New York, and the raccoon that was euthanized up, that became a national story. That was a really big deal. And the reason why so many people get upset over that is because they're two innocent creatures that, pets that can't take care of themselves, and they rely upon their owners to take care of them and provide for them, and they're defenseless little creatures, and then they just get ended. But what about the 325,000 kids they're missing coming across our southern border that have just vanished. I don't really hear much in the media about that. I don't hear much in the government about it. Trump mentioned it during a couple of his, rallies. But other than that, I mean, all of this seems to just fall under the rug. I'm going to start off here. The New York Post, teacher who left claw marks on a teen's back after fooling around, sleeping with him, and the other students were lookouts. So this teacher, 26, she was arrested. She was hooking up with one of the classmates, and the other students were her lookouts, making sure that they didn't get caught. And she gets a sweetheart deal. Of course. She got 4 years. She could have gotten up to 20, but she got 4 years. Notice there's a 4-letter word that rhymes with Snape missing from this headline. You notice that? It's not much. It's not very often you get that in these headlines anymore. And she had kids looking out for her. Another one, married teacher who was surprised by students on Good Morning America with an award is sentenced for the same thing, hooking up with one of the students she was like in charge of. Now, I'm not saying these women are pretty by any measures. These women are not great lookers. But if you go back to when you were age 13, 14, 15, when this kind of thing is now happening, I know I would have felt really weird and uncomfortable. I mean, now as adults, we joke about it a lot. Like, heck yeah, I would have loved this if this were my teacher. But we joke about that because we're adults now with a different mindset. When you go back to 13, 14, that's before the age a lot of guys, young men, discover women at all. And here's another one. Again, these are not trolls. They're not overweight 50-year-old trolls. These are young women that are somewhat attractive. North Carolina high school teacher. And indecent liberties. Now, what does indecent liberties mean? Well, that's that 4-letter word we can't say on YouTube. And so far, somebody had posted this today, or excuse me, not today, just a short time ago. He said, is there an epidemic in our schools? 6 female teachers were arrested in a span of 2 days for hookups with students, including a Kentucky staffer who had a train ran on her by a pair of 16-year-old guys. Ellen Schell, 38, of Danville, charged with hooking up with 2 students on 2 separate occasions. Arkansas educator Heather Hare, 32, hook up with a teen student. And now she's facing first-degree felony assault, snuggle struggle. Oklahoma teacher Emily Hancock, 26. And that's the story I just read for you. Kristen Gannett, 36, English teacher. In Virginia, Alea something or other, Kerharamond, 33. Pennsylvania javelin coach, 17-year-old boy she coached. Hannah Marth, 26. You notice something. It's all the women. There's no men. There's no male teachers doing this anymore. Do you know why? Because the education system is basically filled with 90% women, and the 10 or 15% that are left of the men, probably a lot of them are not straight. They're probably gay. But they're at least smart enough not to hook up with students. Somebody else had posted kind of the same thing. And why do they get pardons, or why do they get lower sentences? And this Mark says it's been reported that 25 female teachers have been arrested in 16 states in only the last 12 months. I got news for you. It's higher than that. It's closer to 60. Now, I'm just running all the way down through here. We're going to get to the TED Talk because that's the worst part of all of this. But I'm working my way up there because there's so much that's surrounded this, and it's just getting swept under the rug. They're trying to normalize it. This is a news story, and I'm going to have to edit the heck out of this for YouTube. This is a news story from 2013. We're going back 11 years ago now. From NBC News, Hillary Clinton's State Department covered up an elite PDF file ring, and Jen Psaki helped Hillary Clinton's State Department. Now, Jen Psaki was the press secretary for the Biden administration for a short while, and she helped cover it up. Why is this not news? Why is this not a story? It seems like no one's talking about this, and I do not understand why. I'll just play the clip so you can hear it.
Some serious allegations this morning facing the State Department.
That's right. According to internal State Department memos, the agency might have called off or intervened in investigation into possibly illegal and inappropriate behavior within its ranks, allegedly to protect jobs and avoid scandals. This concerns the time that Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. We want to get right to NBC's Chief White House correspondent Chuck Todd with the latest. Chuck, good morning to you.
Good morning, Savannah. You know, there's an old saying in Washington that the cover-up is worse than the crime. But in this case, both parts of it are disturbing allegations of and allegations that those crimes were somehow covered up or not looked into. So the State Department this morning is having to respond to those claims and those investigations of misconduct by State Department officials, including by an ambassador and security agents attached to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And the allegations are that these investigations were whitewashed, quashed altogether, and that those orders came from high up.
NBC News has obtained documents related to ongoing investigations into some disturbing allegations involving State Department personnel and at least one ambassador. A State Department memo says the ambassador, quote, routinely ditched his protective security detail in order to solicit sexual favors from both and minor children. The memo also says a top State Department official directed department investigators to, quote, cease the investigation into the ambassador's conduct. It's just one of what another document describes as, quote, several examples of undue influence from top state officials. On Monday, a State Department spokesperson will not confirm specific investigations.
I'm not going to talk about specific cases, but I can say broadly that the notion that we would not vigorously pursue criminal...
So what came of all that? Nothing. Nothing really. And it's still going on today. And the reason why I'm doing this here instead of on my news channel is because I think this is bigger than just being news. I think this is something that men are going to have to fix. Now, granted, there's some weirdo dudes that are involved in this, but it seems too many women, this seems to be a woman problem. I mean, like the women, at least in the schools and many of this other stuff, the media is filled with women, the education system's filled with women, and they're the ones that are perpetrating it, and they're the ones that are not reporting on it. And like, this is how society slowly collapses. This is, you know, when you look at whether it was Rome or some of the other empires, especially the ones that kind of got into debauchery, that was the beginning of the end. It was money problems. It was opening their borders to try to fill their armies. Of course, it was financial collapse and inflation. And it was also the debauchery stuff. And we've got a big problem with that. This comes from MJ Truth Ultra. He says, Congressman Tim Burchett describes how politicians are blackmailed to influence their policies. And Tim is a member of Congress here.
It's how it works. You're visiting, you're out of the country or out of town, or you're in a motel or a bar in D.C., and whatever you're into, women or men or whatever, comes up and they're very attractive and they're laughing at your jokes and you're buying them a drink. Next thing you know, you're in the motel room with them naked, and next thing you know, you're about to make a key vote, and what happens? Some well-dressed person comes up and whispers in your ear, hey, man, there's tapes out on you. Were you in a motel room on whatever with whoever? And then you're like, uh-oh, and said, you really ought not be voting for this thing. It's how it works.
So there was, no, not Benny Hill, Benny Johnson. So it's in our government, and this is, I want you guys all to know this because it's probably happening in the UK and in Australia and in Germany because it's here in the United States. The media doesn't cover this stuff much anymore. You know, and I don't want to get into the politics of this because I try to stay away from that stuff. But, you know, when we had Trump in office, the border was a big deal, and the kids in the cages, and the poor, think of the kids. And then here we are, smash cut just a few years later, and there's 325,000 missing, young ones that have come across the border, and they're just gone, and the media's quiet on it. No one's talking about it, where the media went nuts when Trump was in office. Same thing. Hillary Clinton had that stuff out 11 years ago. Whatever came of that? Nothing. Here you've got a sitting congressman today. This was just recorded a year ago, December 22nd, and Tim's done other things like this. I've met Tim. I've shook his hand. He is a very much a conservative man that when he wants to curse says dadgum. And that's about the hardest curse word he uses. And he's a family man, and he's a man about, God and conservatism. And, he's breaking light on this stuff that we've got. It's in everything now. And I think this is the stuff that men need to care about. Again, we can joke about dating and bad women and all, but this is the kind of stuff that breaks a society, that breaks And these are the most innocent among us, our young ones, the next generations. And we're just totally ignoring these huge problems. I want to talk about normalization. The normalization, we're getting normalized to seeing these teachers in the headlines being inappropriate. We're just getting used to that because now it's every few days, maybe at least once or twice a week, we're seeing these stories. And then we hear about, the 300,000 plus young ones that have made it across the border and have just disappeared. Well, it's no big deal. We'll just, it's a thing, moving on. And the more this happens, the more it becomes normalized and the more you become numb to it. The more it becomes just a thing. And, well, moving on. That's what they do in this news cycle, is they just mention something, then they move on. This is from Wikipedia. The concept of normalization can be found in the work of Michael Foucault, especially Discipline and Punish, in the context of his account of disciplinary power. As Foucault used the term, normalization involved the construction of an idealized norm of conduct. Normalization consists first of all in posting a model, an optimal model, that is constructed in terms of a certain result, and the operation of disciplinary normalization consists in trying to get people, movements, and actions to confirm this model. The normal being precisely that which can conform to this norm, and the abnormal that which is incapable of conforming to the norm. In other words, it is not the normal and the abnormal that is fundamental and primary in the disciplinary normalization. It is the norm. That is, there's an originally perspective character of the norm, and the determination and the identification of the norm, and the abnormal becomes possible in relation to this posted or posited norm. So what they do is they'll take something that seems extreme, right? Like PDF file support. And it's, there's the term, put them up against the wall, throw them in a wood chipper. Like, these people need to be removed from society. But then it's posted, well, actually, let's call them just minor attracted people. And they're trying to normalize that term. Then they say, well, there's nothing really, it's not really horrible. It's just, these poor people identify this way and it's how they feel. And we need to see them as fellow humans and we need to understand them. And this terminology and this moving forward is trying to normalize the acceptance of these type of people. And we won't. But this is what academia and media and our government and Hollywood, they're trying to push this through. From the Stanford report, changing behaviors may be easier when people see norms changing, the Stanford research finds. In a study, people ate less meat and conserved more water when they thought those behaviors reflected how society is changing. The findings could point to new ways of encouraging others to do behavior changes. Now, I'm not going to read through the whole article. I have read through it. And what it summarizes is just by mentioning, hey, you know what? People are trying to eat less meat. They found that when people read signs like that before walking into a food establishment, they ordered less meat, about 18% less meat. They ordered more vegetables. And they've done this in multiple different studies with different things. So now when you have headlines and things like a TEDx speaker here from Snopes fact checking, did a TEDx speaker say the PDF files is an unchangeable sexual orientation? And they said, fact check, true. Yes. They came forward and they said, yep, this is just, people are a little different than us and we need to see them as humans and we need to find them as people and we need to understand them and work with them and help them to be an acceptable member in society. No, I disagree. Now, I'm not saying they need to be ostracized out of society, but there is no trying to understand them. There is no working with them. It's just get them into help, move them out of an area where they can cause harm, and then get them like mental health, get them fixing. It's not something to be accepted, but that's what they're pushing right now. Now, I went through and edited down this video because she said the PDF file word like 100 times in this video. So that's pretty much every time you hear dead silence, that is the phrase that I took out of this. I will play it for us now, and you will see that they're trying to normalize it.
I want to quickly summarize where we are at the moment. According to current research, philia is an unchangeable sexual orientation, just like, for example, heterosexuality.
So the first thing and I'm going to break this up a few times because I want to remember the point she says. First thing she says is it's unchangeable. Once this is in your head, once you're messed up like this, it's unchangeable. Science and psychologists and the rest of them say, once it's in, it's done. It's unchangeable.
No one chooses to be a patriarch. No one can cease being one. The difference between patriarchy and other sexual orientations is that living out this sexual orientation will end in a disaster. Right now, most of us feel discomfort when we think about this scenario. And most of us feel discomfort when we think about pedophiles. But just like pedophiles, we are not responsible for our feelings. We do not choose them.
We're not responsible for our feelings. We do not choose them. In some cases, this is true. Like, take some of you gentlemen out there. I know a lot of guys that they'd look at a girl that's, 105 pounds soaking wet, which is 52, 53 kilograms, and they would say, I have no interest. She's too skinny. She's too thin. I'm not into it. And then there's guys that look at a woman and she's very curvaceous and, a bikini can barely hold all her curves in it. And guys are like, oh, I'm all about that. Where other guys are just the opposite. They say, no, I like the 105-pound little thing over here, and that big girl, zero interest. That is ingrained in us. But you can change how you feel and how you act and how you go through life. Otherwise you'd see a woman, walking down the beach in a bikini. If you're like, man, I'd love to hook up with that, you'd run up and tackle her and have your way with her right on the beach. And then you get 10 or 15 years in prison for that. See, men, we have to rein ourselves in. We need to control our animal instincts. But the way she speaks is, you don't have a choice in this. It just is what it is. And so we need to find that acceptable. Remember, we're having a problem right now with people controlling themselves. These educators that are in doing this stuff with, 13, 14, 15-year-old guys. We have a problem with reining in the feelings and controlling themselves. And these teachers are a prime example of acting on how you feel without thinking about the logical ramifications of what you do. And yet here we've got this woman saying, well, it's just a feeling and, you just shouldn't act on them. But the problem is they do. And so these people need to be removed from our society. But her argument is, no, we need to understand them and accept them.
But we are responsible for our actions. And we must make a decision. It is in our responsibility to reflect and to overcome our negative feelings about ourselves.
It is our job as a society. This is the key part, the takeaway that I think is most important. It is our job as a society to get rid of our negative feelings towards these people, our negative feelings towards how they feel, our negative feelings on how they are. No, wood chipper. It is not up to a society to find a way to implement and feel good about these people and to accept them. We don't do that. But this is what and I've got some studies and other things. Academia is trying to push this through. They're trying to make it a thing.
It is in our responsibility to reflect and to overcome our negative feelings about ourselves and to treat them with the same respect we treat other people with.
Nope.
We should accept that are people who have not chosen their sexuality and who, unlike most of us, will never be able to live it out freely if they want to lead an upright life.
So she's trying to give them excuses, right? How many of you guys out there are straight, young, would love to date a woman, would love to sleep with a woman, would love to have a relationship with a woman, and you can't act on that because women want nothing to do with you? So what do? Well, we don't do anything. You don't get that relationship. You don't get the girl. You don't get to do anything. And that's just the way it goes. It's moving on. These people need to move on. They need to we're not accepting any of this. They come out and they make fun of incels. They come out and they make fun of guys that don't have any game and can't get a girlfriend. And they call them a detriment to society. They call us, any guys that struggle with relationships or any of this stuff, we're problematic. But now it's okay if these people, these PDF files are in society, walking amongst us, and need to be understood and related to?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so, sir.
No. But it's women. Again, a woman presentation, a woman presenting this, a woman that studied this. It's women that are pushing this stuff because they want to normalize debauchery because of my feelings.
We should accept that pedophilia is a sexual preference, a thought, a feeling, and not an act. We should
the risk is it becomes an act all too common. Again, lots of examples. Hundreds of teachers in the last few years.
Differentiate between abuse and pedophilia. We shouldn't increase the suffering of by excluding them, by blaming and mocking them.
No, we're going to mock them. We're going to blame them. We're going to exclude them. We're not inviting them into our society as a normalized thing. It's not happening.
By doing that, we increase their isolation. Only if they make themselves recognizable, because they're not afraid of punishment, of anger and rejection.
No, they need to be afraid of punishment. They need to be afraid of rejection. They need to be rejected. They need to be ostracized from society. And you may think, well, that sounds awful mean. I don't care. I don't care because too many times, when given the opportunity, they act on it. Way too many times. Again, our government, Hollywood, media, music industries, all the teachers, education system.
Can we better understand the causes of and we can improve their treatment?
Now, that's the only thing she said in this whole thing I agree with. Yes, we should learn to understand them. Yes, we should need to look into what makes them tick. Sorry, I'm roasting. The sun's actually hitting the building and warming up my metal shed. It's turning out to be a rather nice day here in Tennessee. We need to understand what makes them tick. We need to understand what makes them sick. But there's not normalizing that. This is not a thing. We're not bringing them in and making them part of an accepted society. From the National Library of Medicine, PDF files, calling them a child lover or the MAP, minor attracted person. Attitude towards labels among those who like that are PDFs. This is all about normalizing, and it's in our upper education. These are college graduated PhDs and bachelors and writing medical papers on how to change our society to becoming to accept this. Again, normalization. And it is up to men, it is up to us to push back against this stuff because, again, there's a lot of women that are not okay with this. I'm not trying to say all women are okay with this, but we're the ones that need to remind them that wood chippers exist. We men need to gatekeep society to a degree now, because if we don't, this is where it goes. This is where they're trying to take it. And California and some of these leftist areas that have gone full-on leftard, they're coming up with laws that allow this type of thing to happen. And it's because they have weak men and they have a ton of women that are all about my feelings and our governments now. This is the kind of stuff that says that makes me say we need to get women out of upper education. We need to get women out of the government. We need to get women out of these positions of power, because they start rationalizing ways to make sure that everyone feels okay, and they go down these rabbit holes, and then they forget about the people that are actually affected, which are the youngest of us, the next generation that is upcoming. These women didn't care. These teachers didn't care. They're married. Some of them have families. They range in low 20s up to 40s, allowing all this stuff to happen. And the media that writes about this stuff, they don't put the proper words in the headlines. Again, that 4-letter word that rhymes with Snape. The media covers it. Hollywood covers it. The government covers it. Jen Psaki and all of that stuff with Clinton covered up, all of it. Same thing, another PubMed article, another study, humanizing PDF files as stigma reduction. How do we get rid of the stigma? How do we make this okay? The normalization of the sickness is what they want. And here, another good reminder is Diddy. If you guys remember, now this is Hollywood, hundreds of 120 accusers, which are people coming forward and saying, hey, inappropriate things happen to me at these parties, many of which are the young, under consent, under the age, which makes almost everybody that went to these parties either a PDF file or they knew of what was going on and said and did nothing. The normalization of it. I bring this up because I want you guys to be aware of how deep-rooted this is in everything. And that we need to do everything we can, whether it's at your local school board or when you're going up for election, your local area in elections, or when you hear this kind of thing, share it, push back against it, talk about it, let people know how you feel about it, that it's wood chipper time. That's the only way we need to put them up against the wall. That's the only way that we can not let this be normalized. Now, I'm not saying end everybody that's got these issues. Yes, we need to get them help and get them into a hospital. But as far as anybody that says, let's normalize this and let's change what we call them and let's let them be a productive member of society without getting fixed, without getting help, without being forced to be on a registry so they have to stay away from the people that they're most likely to harm. I don't agree with that. And you shouldn't either. And this is a real issue that's a real problem, and it's just getting bigger. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today. Because this is the kind of thing that makes me lose my mind, that it's gone viral. It's gone viral about Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon, which is, I mean, and it's a horrible story, don't get me wrong, where these two little pets were euthanized because they, somebody tattletaled on the owner, and that went viral. But you know what doesn't go viral? This stuff. Why aren't we talking more? Why is none of this stuff going viral? Because this isn't Fred the raccoon. It's not Peanut the squirrel. This is literally the next generation of human beings, which are way more important than a squirrel and a raccoon. They just are. Why is it not viral? Where are all the memes about the 325,000 missing coming across the border and then just disappear? Why are we not talking about anything? This is the stuff that we need to pay attention to, and we need to make viral, and we need to make sure people are aware of. And so every time somebody says, well, our government, they're full of PDF files, just throw that out, because they are. Hollywood, they're full of them. The music industry, full of it. Education system, they're everywhere. And, 5-10 years ago, people would have thought you were Alex Jones with a tinfoil hat on. Yet here we are, day after day after day, the teachers, the educators, the government. We've got our own politicians saying that these people are being inappropriate and that's why they vote certain ways. This is what's dragging our country into a hole. It's dragging the world into the hole. And the fact they want to normalize it should make you worried.